Hey guys, back for another chapter of Super Gifted. We have read a couple days and we're back now to another. This chapter is called Super Athlete and it's from the perspective of Taggart. This is a new character that we're adding to the story that we haven't heard from their perspective yet. So, Megan Mercury just didn't get it. Nobody went to a lacrosse game to watch the cheerleaders. When it came to sports, I was the authority, not any pom pom girl. Not only was I the star midi at LAX, but I also quarterbacked for the football team. At wrestling, I didn't hold any specific role. I was just a beast. So when Megan came to me in full freakout mode, blubbering about some dude named Noah who wanted to join the cheerleaders, my reaction was, chill out, Megan. I mean, it stinks to be you, but what am I supposed to do about it? Until I got a load of this Euclid kid at the big pep rally. We held it in the cafeteria because there was still no gym. Coach Franco introduced the team first. The players got a pretty good ovation, especially me. Then the cheerleaders came out. There was the standard hooting mixed with the usual buzzing of a few idiots who barely knew what they were there for. Noah came on last. I'd seen plenty of guy cheerleaders. Trust me, this was different. It was impossible to come up with only one word to describe the kid. He was like a dweeb, shrimp, goober, stick bug, klutz. When he first shambled out, total silence greeted his arrival. Then, as the crowd began to realize that they were actually seeing what they thought they were seeing, a wave of laughter and cheers began to rise. Thinking this was a welcoming ovation, Noah took a deep bow, bonking his head on our team flagpole, knocking it over into the front row of seats. Kids scattered in all directions. Now Noah really did get an ovation, a standing one. People were practically losing their minds and screaming their heads off. I thought back to Megan's words. Believe me, hashtag. No one's going to notice that there's a team on the field once that train wreck gets going. She was right. Here we were, center stage in our own cafeteria, in front of our own fans, and nobody was even looking at us. All eyes were on the train wreck, who was jumping around like someone had put 10,000 volts through him, waving to the crowd with one hand and holding his rapidly swelling forehead with the other. If this kid stayed on the cheerleading squad, this wouldn't be a lacrosse season. It would be a sketch on Saturday Night Live. In sports, if you're not respected, you can't be feared. And it's impossible to be feared if your opponents are too busy laughing at the dweeb, shrimp, goober, stickbug, klutz in the cheerleading suit. So I made a mental note to have a little conversation with this Euclid kid to discuss his cheerleading future and the fact that he wasn't going to have one. At first, I staked out the girls' locker room because that's where the cheerleaders change. Megan set me straight when she came out in her street clothes. Of course he doesn't dress in here with us. He's in the guys' locker room. That was even worse. It meant he would be in there with the team. Not only would we be stuck with him on the field, every game would start with a little preview of dweeb, shrimp, goober, stickbug, klutz. No one would be able to pay attention to Coach Franco. I was more convinced than ever that Euclid had to go for the good of the Hornets. So I waited outside the guys' room. 5 minutes, then 10. No dweeb, shrimp, goober, stickbug, klutz. Finally, I decided I'd better go in just in case he'd flushed himself down the toilet and needed a lifeguard. He was in there all right, running around in his underwear, peeking into lockers and bins. What's the problem? I asked him. Oh, hi, he said to me. You wouldn't happen to know where my pants are, would you? I looked up and there they were, right where I expected them to be, draped over the blades of the ceiling fan, turning slowly. I reached up, grabbed a dangling leg, pulled him down, and tossed him to their owner. Get dressed, I said, looking away because those pale, skinny legs were burning my eyes. We have to talk about how you don't want to be a cheerleader anymore. But I do, he exclaimed, stepping into his jeans, and then out again so he could put them on the right way. It's the least I can do to be true to my school. He must have been a great actor because I could have sworn he was sincere. All right, kid, I'm not brain dead. What are you trying to prove? Prove? He frowned. You can prove a mathematical equation by demonstrating it holds true for any of a domain of numbers, but I don't see how that concept applies to cheerleading. My eyes narrowed. What are you, a wise guy? I used to be, he admitted. I'm an average student now. I might even get to take remedial classes. I breathed a silent apology to Megan. Noah Euclid was the most annoying person who had ever stumbled across the face of the earth. He was obviously messing with me, calling me stupid or something. I didn't take that from anybody. I grabbed him under his arms and lifted him off the floor. I couldn't help noticing that both his feet were sticking out of one pant leg. The clown had the nerve to insult me, the captain of 3 sports teams. Hang up your pom-poms, little man, I told him. You're done. And I walked out of there, leaving him to find his second pant leg all by himself. Before the door eased itself shut behind me, I heard him say, There are no loops to hang them by. It's a design flaw. The next day, when I jogged out onto the field for lax practice, I glanced over the sidelines where the cheerleaders were working out and I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Noah. I thought I'd been speaking English yesterday, not Swahili. I'd made my message 1,000% clear. Megan shot me an accusing look like I'd epically failed at my assignment. Actually, she was right. I ran over, pulled him out of formation, and hissed, What are you doing here? He beamed at me and held out one of his pom-poms. Look, I've installed a loop of elastic fabric affixed with industrial staples so it can hang from any peg or hook. I told the girls it was your idea. He tried to wink, but he couldn't even get that right, blinking both eyes. I swear I just stood there with my mouth hanging open. I might still be there if Coach Franco hadn't blown his whistle to get started. Practice was terrible. The other players were okay, but I just couldn't get my act together. It's impossible to throw and catch with lax sticks under your head in the game, unless your head is in the game. And if I was off, all the guys were off because every play went through me at some point. Coach Franco practically passed out from blowing his whistle so often. He had a lot of suggestions about what we needed to do to improve. I didn't listen to any of them. I knew that what I really needed to improve was this Euclid situation. I kept an eye out for Noah around school, staking out his locker, cornering him in the lunchroom. You haven't quit yet. That better be because you've got laryngitis, so you've got no voice to tell Megan the bad news. Oh no, my voice is exemplary, he replied cheerfully. A fine thing that would be, a cheerleader who can't cheer. That's what I'm trying to tell you, I insisted. You can't cheer. It's over. On the contrary, the season hasn't even started yet. Listen, man, this cheerleading squad is not including you. You're not on it. Certainly I'm on it. I'll show you the list. I know you're on it, but you're off it. That, he informed me, is a logistical impossibility. I was getting more ticked off every day. So was Megan. Not at him, at me. I don't want to be negative, but he's ruining our routines. She was trying to remain calm, but I could sense her anger crackling under the surface. When everyone else turns left, he turns right. When we're in tight formation, he's all over the place. He measured our human pyramid with a protractor. He translated our fight song into Latin. You've got to do something. So how's that my problem? I shot back. You're the head cheerleader. Kick him off the squad. Mrs. Torres won't let me. She says he has more school spirit than the rest of us put together. For some reason, she's protecting him. Protecting? I echoed. He didn't need protection. The kid's an alien, sent down from the mothership to drive everyone crazy. We need protection from him. Oh, come on, she exploded. Some tough guy you are. Stop giving the guy supernatural powers. He's not an alien, he's just plain clueless. Stop being so subtle. You're going to have to get right into his face and tell him how it is. I agonized over that. Noah Euclid had become almost an obsession. He was so far inside my head I couldn't do things on the lacrosse field that were practically second nature to me. I saw his eager, goofball grin in my sleep. Was it possible that he wasn't evil at all? That he simply didn't understand what I was telling him? The more I thought about it, the more sense it made. You couldn't lean on a guy who barely had the sense to notice he was being leaned on. I had to threaten him, pure and simple. I already told him to quit the cheerleaders. What I hadn't said was quit the cheerleaders or else. 2 extra words that made all the difference. It would be an ugly scene, but it would be worth it. Euclid would be gone once and for all, and then the Hornets could get back to lacrosse. But I couldn't risk confronting him at school. There was too great a chance of being overheard by one of the teachers. Coach Franco had a zero-tolerance policy on bullying. If you got caught, you were off the team, even if you were only doing it out of team spirit. No, this had to be done outside of school. Hardcastle was a small town. Noah couldn't hide forever. All right, Chapter 5, Super Scuffle, and it's from the perspective of Donovan Curtis. Ooh, this is a long chapter. Whoa, Nelly. Hi. Okay. Candy had a play date on Saturday. His sister Marie Curie was visiting. Chloe Garfinkel, Marie's owner was on the robotics team with Noah and me. Chloe went to the academy full time like Noah should have, and I used to, by mistake. Marie Curie was already housebroken, which was a lot more than I could say for Kandahar, who was still dribbling, and worse, all over the carpet. Marie had a nice chew toy, not that instrument of torture, the bow wow bone. She was better looking than Candy, too. She had been spared the enormous feet of the absentee father so she could cross a room without tripping. She was definitely smarter, and not just because she was named after a famous scientist. I experienced a pang of guilt for thinking bad things about Candy. He might have been an ugly, untrainable mongrel, but he was my ugly, untrainable mongrel. The two pups rolled around together in the backyard and seemed to have a good time together. It was a good reunion, much better than Marie's with her brother, or her mother, Beatrice, who ignored her like she wasn't there. The cinnamon chow chow was sulking because Brad wasn't paying any attention to her. He was walking up and down with a fussy baby Tina, trying to get her quiet while my sister napped upstairs. Brad's back was as straight as a telephone pole, his posture upright, his free arm swinging in a controlled arc at his side. His other arm supported his daughter as if she was a rifle and he was marching in tight military formation. Come on, Tina. Nap time needs lights out for you. This fussing isn't regulation. Chloe had a suggestion. The academy kids always did. Your posture's too good. My brother-in-law frowned. Too good? In motion? It's motion that soothes a crying baby, Chloe exclaimed. Your body position is so straight that poor Tina might as well be standing still. Try slouching a little. The tank commander looked completely blank. You know, she added, walk like Donovan. Brad examined me a minute and then rounded his shoulders, unstraightened his back, and allowed his head to droop a little. The change in his gait had Tina bobbing with every step. She quieted almost immediately, lolling against her father's chest. Within seconds, she was fast asleep. Brad tossed a whispered thanks over his shoulder. I slump like that? I asked Chloe. She shrugged. No kid has the carriage of a Marine officer. You didn't answer my question, I said, slightly miffed. In spite of everything, I was glad to see Chloe. I saw her a lot at the academy, but that was always robotics business. Heavy metal was really taking shape. Luttrell, who did most of our hands-on metal work, had completed the stainless steel body so that we were way ahead of schedule. Getting the new robot ready was our goal for the rest of the semester, but he wouldn't be going into competition until next year when we'd be freshmen in high school. How's Noah doing? Chloe wanted to know. As smart as Noah was, she always felt protective of him. Depends who you talk to, I told her. If you go by Noah, he's doing amazing. He got his first D last week, and his counselor is threatening to put him in remedial classes. She shook her head in exasperation. Don't they understand how brilliant he is? He's too brilliant for anyone to understand, I replied. Least of all me. I can't even paper train a baby dog. They're called puppies, she reminded me. She seemed worried. Noah told Abigail he joined the cheerleading squad. That can't be right, can it? He's number one at everything for 13 years. Now he's determined everything he's bad at. Cheerleading might be his crowning achievement. She picked up Marie, who had fallen asleep on the grass. When you think about it, she said with a sigh, it can't really hurt him. He's Noah. Even if he flunks the whole year, he can teach himself everything he missed in 2 weeks. Suddenly the sprinkler system burst to life, drenching everyone with a fine shower of water. We all scattered. What? Brad turned his back to protect Tina from the spray. It was too late. The baby was bawling from the shock of the cold drops on her face. Only Candy stood there, bewildered, gazing around in wonder, his big ears dripping. We looked at the sprinkler controls. Beatrice had the tap in her teeth, a defiant expression in her brown eyes. Brad had used to think it was clever that Beatrice had figured out how to turn the sprinklers on when she wanted a drink. Now he was furious. Bad dog, he shouted. That only made Tina cry harder. There was nothing wrong with that kid's lungs. The upstairs window opened and Katie stuck her head out, her nap interrupted. What's going on? That was enough to draw my mother into the conversation. She stormed out onto the back porch. Donnie? That was what passed for math at our house. Brad's dog plus Brad and Katie's daughter plus our sprinklers equaled my fault. I caught a quizzical glance from Chloe, which told her that my 159 IQ couldn't figure it out either. I pointed to Beatrice at the tarp. It was her. Take the dog for a walk, Mom ordered. Why me? I said. She's Brad's dog. In the corpse, my brother-in-law lectured, we do what needs to be done, and everyone pulls their own weight. It was never good news when Brad began a sentence with, in the corpse. Of sure, he'd be about to make another comparison between the real world and the Marines, where reality just didn't measure up. As much as he loved his family, he really missed military life. I almost felt bad for him, except that I was a part of the real world that didn't measure up to most. While we're taking on a little responsibility these days, my mother added from the window, it wouldn't kill you to put pitch in. So Candy went back inside and I took Beatrice out on a leash. Chloe and Marie Curie walked with us for a while. Chloe tried to make me feel better. It's basic psychology. Beatrice is acting up because she's jealous of the new baby. Chloe had some sort of scientific theory for everything. It doesn't explain everything, I grumbled. Brad is out to turn me into junior Marine, but he doesn't get redeployed soon. I'm going to have to find a new family. Chloe and Marie Curie turned off Zinnia Street. Beatrice was calmer now that Brad and Tina were out of her line of vision. Score 1 for science. Hang in there, girl, I said to the dog. One of these days you're going to like Tina. We'll bring her to the playground together. My eyes found the jungle gym, the little kids swarming over the equipment. That was when I noticed that one of the little kids wasn't a little kid at all. He was a big kid who just happened to be little. It was Noah. He was throwing himself around in the wood chips that surrounded the climbing apparatus and slides. Why was he hurling himself to the ground like that, his arms and legs splayed out wide like he was a starfish or something? It took a while, but I figured out what he was up to. Hardcastle's newest cheerleader was trying to teach himself to do a cartwheel. And Noah being Noah, it wasn't going very well. All at once, a burly, muscular kid on a bicycle came tearing into the playground, stopping with the front tire a half-inch from Noah's belly button. Then the big guy was down off the bike, hauling Noah up by his shirt. Hey! I was on the run towards them, Beatrice loping at my side. It was the kind of bullying I'd been on high alert for since Noah's day one at our school, but that had never quite materialized beyond a few snide comments and a sudden burst of enthusiasm for dodgeball in gym class. I recognized the kid, Hash Taggart, who was kind of the uber jock at Hardcastle Middle. He wrestled Noah to the ground and straddled him, a knee pinning each arm. They were pretty loud, too, the lacrosse star's booming voice and Noah's answering squeaks. I gave you 1,000,000 chances to back off, Hashtag was raving. An imbecile could have figured it out. Are you sure? Noah replied seriously. An imbecile has an IQ between 26 and 50. My IQ has been measured at 206. Shut up, Hashtag bellowed. I'm not listening to you. You make people crazy. Although, of course, these days, the idea that IQ tests provided a true measure of intelligence is considered fundamentally flawed. Shut up, Hashtag bellowed. He drew back a meaty fist about to pulverize skinny Noah. I left my feet in a desperation dive and tackled Hashtag. It hurt like mad when my nose slammed into his shoulder, but not as much as when I slid through the wood chips, picking up splinters all over at least half my body. Hashtag turned his attention away from Noah and to me. Sure, he was 5 times bigger than Noah, but he was still at least twice the size of me. Funny that I should only consider that when it was too late. It was my fallout blindness that Daniels found so entertaining. It was great taking action, but not so great at thinking about the consequences first. Curtis? He roared, springing back to his feet. Pick on someone your own size, I shot back, which was probably stupid because there weren't any sumo wrestlers in our neighborhood. And then his fist was coming at me. It made contact with the side of my face and everything went gray. The next thing I heard was a bark of outrage and a cinnamon brown bundle of fur was airborne. Her jaws clamped onto the arm of Hashtag's windbreaker. The lacrosse star let out a scream that easily eclipsed anything that had come out of either Noah or me. Beatrice, let go! To be honest, I was kind of stunned that the Chow Chow would go to war for me. She hung on like a crocodile. Bad dog, I scolded. Bad? Hashtag howled, trying in vain to shake his arm free. That's the best you can do? How about Nightmare Hound from the darkest? He went on and on, scaring the little kids and worse, attracting the attention of their parents. Not good. But what could I do? I took out my phone and called Brad. First Lieutenant Bradley Patterson, United States Marine Corps, came running in a full-on sprint to his Chow Chow's side. By the time he arrived on scene, Hashtag's parents were already there. Are you the owner? Hashtag's father demanded. Yes, sir, Bradley Patterson. Mr. Taggart cut him off. I'm a volunteer fireman, so I know what happens to pets that pose a danger to the public. First, the dog is quarantined by animal control to check and see if it has rabies. I assure you that Beatrice doesn't have rabies, Brad put in fervently. She's up to date on all of her shots. Second, hashtag's dad went on as if no one had spoken. There's a hearing to determine if she should be declared vicious and put down. The technical term is euthanized, Noah supplied helpfully. All color drained from Brad's face. You could even see it underneath his Marine Corps buzz cut. This was a guy who drove a tank through hostile territory for a living, but the thought of anything happening to Beatrice turned him to jelly. To be honest, I wasn't too thrilled about that part myself. If I hadn't tried to save Noah, hashtag wouldn't have punched me, and Beatrice wouldn't have bitten anybody. It was my fallout blindness coming back to haunt me. Only this time, the fallout wouldn't be coming down on me. Brad's dog might be the one to pay the price. Hashtag started it, I exclaimed angrily. He was pushing Noah around, and when I tried to get him to stop, he practically knocked my head off. Let's see what animal control has to say about it, Mr. Taggart replied smugly. Mind if I have a word with my brother-in-law for a second? Brad put an iron arm around my shoulders and steered me away from the Taggarts. I was still speaking for Beatrice. That's the only reason Beatrice bit him. She was protecting me. Quiet, he hissed. Beatrice can't go before a hearing. But she's innocent. Listen, back when Beatrice was with my mother, there was an incident. These kids were playing frisbee, and one of them ran into her and knocked her over. Well, Beatrice thought it was an attack. She bit someone else, too? Well, what did you know? Beatrice had a past. She was a criminal, and a repeat offender, no less. Brad's speech was clipped. Don't say the B word. Whatever you do, we can't let this go before animal control. Yeah, but how can we stop it? I asked in a low voice. Mr. Taggart's almost as big of a jerk as his kid. We apologize, he said. You apologize. For what? I demanded, smashing my face into his delicate little fist. Brad ignored my protest and dragged me back to the Taggarts. Hashtag's mom was taking pictures of her son's injured arm, probably evidence to use in doggy court or whatever. There were teeth marks and swelling, but the skin was unbroken. That's good news, Noah offered wisely. It's impossible for rabies to be transmitted unless there's blood. Since when are you the big expert? Hashtag exploded. It really hurts. What if I can't play lacrosse? You need forearm strength, you know? There's no rabies, I promise, Brad insisted. Even so, Mr. Taggart countered, you can see how hard this is on a sensitive boy. Yeah, it just slipped out. Hashtag looked real sensitive when he was getting ready to beat the snot out of Noah. If looks could kill, the one I got from Brad would have vaporized me as surely as a shot from his M1 tank. Mr. Taggart wasn't too pleased either. We could sue. You could, Noah agreed, but you wouldn't get much. I don't think tank commanders make a lot of money. Tank commanders? Hashtag's father looked at Brad in surprise. You're a military man? Brad stood up even straighter than his usual ramrod posture. Marine Corps, sir, on furlough between tours in Afghanistan. Mr. Taggart was impressed. Really? I was Army myself, Quartermaster Corps. Never saw any action, though, unless you count the time the women's barracks ran out of shampoo. He reached out a hand. Thanks for your service. I didn't think my brother-in-law would be too anxious to shake hands with someone who threatened to have Beatrice put down, but he swallowed his pride and pumped the man's arm. Hashtag chimed in. But we're still calling the cops on the mutt, right? Mutt is an erroneous term, Noah corrected him. It refers to the mixed breed, while Beatrice is a purebred chow chow. Kid, do you ever shut up? Not when I have something informative to offer, was Noah's response. Let's just chalk this up as an unfortunate accident, Mr. Taggart decided. I'd hate to make trouble for one of our brave fighting men. I could see Brad relax. I appreciate that, sir. But I don't want that dog anywhere near my son, hashtag's mother warned, or we will have her declared vicious. And don't think we won't. She glared at me, and you stay away too. And that was it. Beatrice was off the hook. Brad was off the hook. Even Noah was off the hook. Mr. Taggart gave his son a lecture about picking on a little guy. The only person who wasn't off the hook? Me. I'm not going to forget about this, Curtis, hashtag whispered. That shot in the face. Consider it a down payment. Oh, he's a spectacular human being. If that wasn't bad enough, Brad blamed me for the whole thing. I asked you to do one thing, Donnie. Take Beatrice for a walk. I guess that was too hard for you. What was I supposed to do? I protested. Let hashtag pummel Noah? There you go again, my brother-in-law accused. Nothing is ever your fault. There's always some excuse. But it really is an excuse, I protested. Now you're making an excuse about an excuse, he snapped. Listen, Donovan, I see you roll your eyes when I talk about military life, but it's not all about tanks and weapon systems and combat. It's about the kind of person you're going to be, having high standards for yourself and living by a code of honor, integrity, and discipline. If this is about getting a buzz cut, I interjected, I don't want to hear it. The haircut is just a symbol. It's a token of your commitment to be a part of something greater than yourself. I have enough trouble just being me, I retorted. Didn't you notice there's a 3-sport varsity athlete almost took my head off back there? He frowned. Fine. I'm just some jarhead Marine to you. I don't care about that. But if you screw up, you put Beatrice in danger. You're going to stay away from that hashtag. You don't fight with him. You don't talk to him. You don't even breathe the air in his zip code. But how can I help it if he comes after me? I appealed. That's your problem, Donnie. Whatever happens to Beatrice is on your head. If she suffers, you suffer. Is that clear? Hey, this was a guy who made his living blowing stuff up with his tank and driving over the wreckage. And the next wreckage might be me. Was it clear? You bet. Alrighty, we'll pick up tomorrow.